this meeting to order and would like to welcome you all and thank you for being here. We'll be led in the pledge by Damon Weebelhaus. Damon here?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Damon. Let's see, all of the board members are present except Mr. Mattson, who's been excused. There are a few addendum items which will include the additional information on the consent agenda, human resource activity, Festival of Trees final report, real property resolution in the Bonneville Elementary School, and legislative update. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the addenda.
I move that we approve the agenda with the addenda.
Any discussions? Or as a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next on the agenda is approval of minutes. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as follows. Oh, boy. Let's see, the work session of January 14th, executive session, student discipline, January 15th, executive session, personnel, January 21st, regular board meeting, January 21st, special meeting, rate 1-1 device, January 29th, the authorization of payment of.
No,
Okay, I'm
that's-
sorry. Go ahead. The minutes then.
I move we approve the minutes as corrected.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, which includes the authorizing payment of claims, approving supplemental financial information, and approving the human resource activity.
I'd like to raise a question. We don't often talk about those payment of claims, but in the very end of that, the list of claims, there are two conference tables that are fairly expensive. And I'm just wondering, if in the new Gate Center, do we have two rooms, or did we purchase two big conference tables, or what? You're looking puzzled, Bart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who else to ask. There's from Valley office, at the very end of the payment of claims list, there are two different conference tables.
I do not know. I'll have to get back with you on that, for sure.
Okay, because they're just two big ticket items, and I wondered,
I'll see if I can have that answer before I get back up.
okay, thank you.
Okay,
So I would move that we approve the consent agenda pending the answer to that question.
okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And now Courtney, do you do your recognitions?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, trustees, Dr. Howell, Ms. Johnson, and student representatives. It is my favorite time of the month where I have the privilege of introducing recognitions within our district. We recognize several individuals who, through their endeavors, have supported and embody our district's mission, vision, and beliefs and goals to think more, learn more, and be more together. The first award is our Cake Awards. So our district believes a safe, supportive, caring, and respectful environment is critical to student learning. The School District 25 Education Foundation, in partnership with McDonald's, supports the Learner of the Month Award to recognize one elementary learner and one secondary learner from our district from October through May. The Cake Award celebrates positive character, attitude, kindness, and encouragement toward others. In addition to being recognized here at the monthly board meeting, the recipients also receive cupcakes delivered to their classrooms to be enjoyed with and among their peers. Nominations for the Cake Award are submitted by a teacher who has observed the nominee's behavior and are approved by the school's principal. So with that, we will begin our February Cake Award presentations. This one is for our Elementary Learner of the Month. So I'd like to, at this time, invite Georgie Anderson and her teacher, Mrs. Craythorne, to please join me at the podium. Georgie is a fourth grade learner, and she attends Chubbuck Elementary School, and she is in Miss Craythorne's class. In her nomination letter, Mrs. Craythorne wrote, "I have known Georgie since she was in the 2nd grade. Now she is a 4th grader in my class. Georgie always comes to school with a smile on her face that gleams from ear to ear." Can we see one of those smiles? She is diligent and thorough when completing her assignments and reaching her goals. Georgie is an engaged learner, always asking questions and making comments during class discussions. She is a very talented writer and artist. Georgie is also genuinely kind to everyone, saying uplifting words to her classmates and helping those who are struggling to understand. She is a joy to have in my classroom, and as her teacher, I know that I, along with her classmates, are grateful that Georgie is part of our classroom family. Wow, that's a pretty singing endorsement. So with that, we have a certificate for you that you'll get to keep. And in addition, like I said, you're going to be recognized later this week in front of your classmates with cupcakes. So we'll be bringing and doing this kind of the same presentation in front of your class, and so you can share cupcakes with them. Is that okay? And then also, you're going to receive, Mrs. Craythorne and you will both receive a certificate from McDonald's. And then also, your library is going to get $50 to purchase books in your name. And you'll get to choose those books and sign your name in them. So that's a pretty cool part of this, too. So with that, please join me in congratulating Georgie. And and will you go and shake everybody's hand up here so they can congratulate you in person?
Congratulations, you're awesome.
And you'll get your certificate when we visit your school later this week.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
You do have good kids. Thank you for nominating us.
And now our secondary learner of the month. Will Damon Weeblehouse and his teacher, Mrs. Ellen Lagus, please join me at the podium? We've already met Damon earlier this evening. So Damon is in the 6th grade at Hawthorne Middle School, and I believe in Mrs. Lagus' class. In her nomination Miss Lagus wrote, "Damon came up to me this morning and brought tears to my eyes. The other day he saw a boy sitting by himself acting very lonely. Damon approached the boy and struck up a conversation. Damon said he has now found himself a new best friend. He went out on a limb and befriended someone who needed it the most. I am so impressed by his kind heart. Damon is one of the hardest working learners I have ever had the pleasure of teaching. He strives to do his best and takes everything in stride. Damon deserves to be recognized, yet he would never do these things to be acknowledged. He is a wonderful learner. He is loving, caring, funny, and friendly, and I am so blessed to be his teacher." Wow, that's pretty awesome. So you also get this certificate. We will also be visiting your class later this week to deliver cupcakes to your classroom that you can share. And then also you'll be receiving a gift certificate to McDonald's, as will Mrs. Lagus, and then also $50 for your library to purchase books in your name. So congratulations. Thank you for being a shining
Damon, congratulations, buddy. Keep up the good work.
Oh, Damon.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Probably doesn't remember, but he used to live in
Thanks for trying.
Good job, buddy.
You sound like the kind of friend I'd like to have. Good job.
Okay, now to our Employee of the Month, or our PIES Award. The Employee of the Month PIES Award recognizes our employees who positively influence educational success. The award is for employees who go above and beyond in that effort. ISU Credit Union partners with us in providing this award. Is Mrs. Elaine Whitehead here with us tonight? Please join us. And Mrs. McCarthy was unable to attend. Jenna, you could join her at the podium if you want, or at the end to shake her hand. Yeah. So, thank you for being here tonight. We're doing a little bit of a disservice to Mrs. Whitehead tonight because she's probably one of the busiest people in the district, and especially at this time of year. And so it's been told that you work well into the evening hours to attend to all of your students' needs. So thank you for taking the extra time to be here with us tonight. Mrs. Elaine Whitehead is February's PIES Award recipient. She's the registrar at Highland, and she was nominated by Mrs. Jan McCarthy, who's a teacher at Highland. In her nomination letter, Mrs. McCarthy wrote, "Elaine is the poster child for going above and beyond for our students. She puts in countless extra hours to ensure that schedules are set and that our students have what they need to succeed. She works tirelessly, always the first one here and often the last one to leave late at night. Elaine is kind and thoughtful. She treats every student as well as her coworkers with respect. She's diligent in making sure the students are happy and, again, have what they need to graduate. She makes my job as a teacher very easy because she is always prepared and lets us know well ahead of time what she needs from us to help our students. Her job is not always the most fun. It is very stressful and would be impossible for one person to do if they didn't spend many of their own hours at work when everyone else is at home with their families. Elaine is amazing. Her work ethic and willingness to help others set her apart from the norm. Please consider her making her the recipient of this award." So with that, you will also receive the certificate and a sticker for your door. You'll also receive a $50 gift card courtesy of ISU Credit Union and this vacation voucher. And then we will send this to Ms. McCarthy. She will also get a $20 Visa gift card courtesy of ISU Credit Union for nominating you. So please join me in congratulating you for being such a wonderful.
Elaine, thank you for
Thank you for all you do.
Thanks for going above and beyond with all your hours.
Okay, now we'll receive public comment, and I have one request from Frank Dating.
Oh,
You're on. You're on.
Hi, Frank Nuding, Premier Properties here in Pocatello. I work on behalf of Lance Peck down at the funeral home, and also Mike Hockey. He has the 28 studio apartments right there behind Pocatello High School. So I first had approached Doug, Dr. Howe, regards the potential of acquiring down at the funeral home. I'd also had sent letters out to the additional property owners that were behind Pocatello High School. He indicated a willingness to actually sell to the district and move with the thoughts of actually having a practice field that would be right next to Pocatello High School. In addition, the city of Pocatello agreed to vacate Garfield behind the school where there's no additional utilities or anything. The fire department said they would go along with that. For me, we started at a higher price, and part of the reason why is because he has a crematorium that's actually located in his funeral home, and it's rather expensive to move it. So in my conversation with him this evening before I came here, he would be at $1.2 million for his property, which is almost 3/4 of an acre. In addition, with the vacation of Garfield, that would be 1 acre that could be utilized. This is just a rendition of how it would actually look. In the meantime, when that happened, I got a call from the owner of the property of the apartment complex. He initially said he's willing to sell. So that would basically give the district an opportunity to pick up almost the entire block. There'd only be 2 homes left on the block. For me, I can't direct anybody to what you potentially could do, but actually acquiring this property at this time makes so much sense because of the money that we're putting into our namesake high school right here in Pocatello. When you drive into town, it says Pocatello. When you look at that high school, it says Pocatello, and it doesn't have a facility. I know the district has to plan, and you have other needs, you have other schools to address. But for me, it's the acquisition of the property. When you potentially do something like this, you actually have the opportunity to get it now. So the combined price for this property, which is the funeral home, which is now right here, which is this whole half a block, and then this is actually the apartment complex. That would leave these 2 homes with everything left on this entire block. Because the school district already owns this, they own this, and they own across here. And if you vacate Garfield, then basically when you step out of the school, you would actually be into if you went with a practice field, a facility for PE, something for soccer, an improvement for the entire Pocatello High School. Every other high school in town has facilities. And so what happens is I'm a realtor. And so when I looked at the district map, basically people are making decisions of where to buy their homes based, am I going too fast?
No, 3 minutes, but I just.
I thought I had 5.
No, oh, you have 3 minutes left.
Okay. Sorry, okay. So, but anyway, so what I'm looking at is just saying to the district, I also have spoken to Phil, Becky, and Jason Meter. They're willing to put some Meter family money behind this project. I've also talked to a financial institution that it's not off the table for them as well. If the district needed some assistance in an acquisition, currently, if the district bought the apartment complex right now, it brings in money. It's got a management group that actually manages it, and it brings in $7,000 or $8,000 a month. So this guy wants $450,000. This guy wants $1.2 million for his half a block. And then adding where the city has agreed to vacate Garfield. We understand that planning isn't required to be able to actually do anything with it, but the acquisition of the property, it's just, the time is now to actually do it. Myself as a realtor, I'm not getting paid. So, I mean, this is a freebie for me. So that's not what I generally do, but what I looked at and I said, we have to have this because of what we're doing with that high school. Let's make, beyond what we're doing initially, let's complete the project. And the acquisition of the dirt and doing it down the road because you can budget for it absolutely makes sense. Okay?
Okay, thank you for your
Right, you bet.
presentation then, Frank.
You bet.
And we'll refer this on to the
Right.
facilities in the athletic facility.
Right, and I'm just gonna leave these with you.
Can I
just
ask
to
a
give you
question?
an idea.
Yeah, go ahead.
You have any questions?
Yes, I was just wondering, do you know how long that property is from curb to curb?
I do, actually. Had to ask me. I'll leave the plan back with you too. It's 280 by 160, I believe. This is plat map for that property, which it's inclusive of this here, and then also this whole half a block. Yeah, and the problem that we have here with this is that we know we have a historical church here that we can't do anything with. But actually closing this off and being able to utilize all this, I don't know anything about the church except it's historical.
It's It's the
I-
oldest Protestant church in Pocatello.
Yeah, I looked at the rock in there, and it's just beautiful, so.
I do have another question. Is,
Right?
have they had that land appraised?
There is, and that's part of the reason why that was Doug's first question, is that, basically what I did was, I went and I got, Gordon Wilkes at Gate City, and then another broker got BPOs for the property. So, if it falls short of the appraised, whatever we're asking, that's why we have family money, or we have additional money to help for that acquisition. I mean, when you look at this building here, there's 7,300 square feet, and he wants $450,000. But for me, as a commercial sales guy, I can sell this for $700,000 because of the amount of money it brings in.
And what about the two houses? They're not on the,
Those
those aren't historical or
No, no.
anything?
And I sent letters to these folks, and I actually know who this one is, but I kind of wanted to get a feel for everybody. If this occurred, I think that we would be able to acquire these. And this would make the most sense.
And then I had a question on his crematory. Regardless of who buys it, he'd still have to move it, correct?
No, you guys would be tearing it down.
He would be,
I anticipate if the district acquired it, you'd be ripping up the concrete or the asphalt and tearing down the building. He's not gonna tear down the building,
okay.
okay?
Okay,
Guys, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'll leave the plat back there too.
Okay.
Okay, next on the agenda, the student reports. I want to start with Kaylin Gondo about that.
You guys hear me? We good? Okay. What? Oh, I thought you said something. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. Poke High School will participate in the art show, and we have 70 plus students competing. This will be on March 6th from 5 to 8 during the art walk. Our mock trial qualified for state, and we took first at districts. Our BPA group did a phenomenal job at regionals. 9 out of the 11 competitors qualified for state, and the competition was held at ISU on January 21st. It's the first time we've competed or had a BPA program. This was a mouthful to say, so I'm sorry if I butcher it. Our student government will be awarded the Idaho Association of Student Council's Outstanding Student Council Award next week at State Student Council Conference. And then we are sponsoring a Unity Week from March 30th to April 4th. And we're uniting all the high schools in the area for a week, and we're doing a bunch of low-cost fun activities. So we have Pokey, Century, American Falls with Grace Lutheran, Marsh Valley, and Highland, and then we're also inviting New Horizons students. And then we are still working to find places for our annual day service on April 17th. So if you guys have any suggestions, you can contact our principal. And then Leadership Pocatello, they're touring PHS this Thursday from 11 to 12:30. And then tonight we have our freshman night, which is where I'm going right after this. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Kaylin.
Yes.
Abby Mortimer from Highland.
Okay. Is that good? Okay. So we've kicked off our fundraising at Highland for Make-A-Wish Foundation, and this is a really big week that we do to help raise money for that. We held a volleyball tournament where we collected donations at the last few basketball games, which was really good. And then we're selling candygrams right now to help save some more money. And then we also held a dance for Pokey, Century, and Highland students, and it was really fun. And we're just getting started. We still have our teacher talent show, our Highland Idol competition, and a few other things left. And we just want to thank everyone who participates in that because it's a really fun event. We had our elective fair this week, which was very successful, and we had a lot of people come
and talk in that. And we wanted to thank all the people who attended and who put on the event. And we're very proud of all of our winter extracurricular activities and that have now finished their regular season and are heading into our postseason. So yeah, go Rams.
Thanks. Emma Watts from Century.
All right. Thank you. Are we good? Okay. So our girls basketball will have our final game on next Thursday at the Great Basin Tournament to see if we're first or second, but we are going to go to state this year, so we're super excited. And then our cheer won first in show and will also be going to state. And then our choir and orchestra had a combined concert with Pokey, Highland, and Century last night. And then our wrestling placed second in the Fleshman tournament. And then our student council will also be going to state at the Idaho Association of Student Councils. And we're personally invited to do a presentation there for the first time. And we're going to do it on the charity month that we had in December. So we are really excited about that. And then we will be having an elective fair tomorrow night, and you guys are invited to come.
Thank you.
Wait.
If you want to hang around, feel free, and if you have other things to do, we'll excuse you. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment.
Thanks for being here, though.
Have a good night.
Courtney Fisher will provide our media report and community relations update and the final Festival
Yes.
of Trees report.
Okay, thank you. Over the past month, news out of the 2020 legislative session continues to dominate the news cycle, and we're paying close attention to and engaging with our representatives on several issues being dealt with right now, including the House's repeal of teacher certification standards, the House repeal of English, math, and science standards, the House's call for a waiting period on failed bond measures, and also a House bill to limit the number of elections that can be run every year. So we're paying attention to those and sending in our comments on those issues. Other education topics in the news media include master educator premiums, career technical education funding, and then today, dialogue regarding the governor's task force recommendation to enhance training for teachers to support social emotional learning. I have a link to all the articles that we've been watching that I will email to you after this meeting. As far as social media goes, since January 12th, we've posted a total of 39 times on Facebook. Our page was visited 26,684 times in the past 28 days. We increased our page likes to 8,168 and increased our followers. We're just under the 9,000 mark at 8,992 followers, which is a really good reach. I'm really proud of that expansion on Facebook. So our total post engagement, which includes comments, likes, and shares, was 12,456, and our total reach was 48,871. We've increased our Instagram followers to 601. That's about 125 more than last time. And we've increased our Twitter audience to 333 followers. As far as our website goes, we've got 28,000 users. That's about 1,000 users per day, which is up about 150 users per day from last month. 51,000 unique sessions, and more than 50% of those users are still accessing our site through their mobile devices. The other 50 traditionally desktop. The most frequently visited pages continue to be home, news, Pocatello High School home, elementary school food services, elections, which is good. We had about, when we first posted the election information, we had about 1,000 views, and since that time we've had another 1,400 views. So that information is getting out there about the upcoming school plant facilities levy. As far as community relations, we've been really busy engaged in the Legislative Council, as I mentioned, so we'll continue to be active, sharing our thoughts and feedback with that, not only the council, but our representatives. Community outreach is well underway for the school plant facilities levy. We have started as of the last week in January, started those community presentations in the schools and with community civic organizations. That election will be on Tuesday, March 10th. I will be doing a first review of the video tomorrow morning and hoping to finalize and publish that ASAP so we can get an even more visual representation of what that levy is all about. We're also drafting frequently asked questions as we've been going out to these community presentations. We've been getting feedback from audience members, teachers, community members. What are the questions that are top of mind that our fact sheet doesn't quite answer? So we are drafting kind of a running list of FAQs and we're hoping to publish that by the end of the week as well. So we've been getting really good feedback for what additional information people want to know. Some other community things going on. The mayor of Pocatello, Brian Bladd, announced his 4th annual Mayor's Million Minute Marathon. That's a mouthful. He partnered with ISU Credit Union and the Marshall Public Library to bring this to K through 5 schools in School District 25's boundaries. That also includes public, charter, and homeschool. ISU Credit Union donated 7,500 reading logs that they have been passing out at schools so that kids can log their minutes read, and they're really hoping to get up to that million minute mark. Last year it was about 500,000, so we have some ways to go. So I've been trying to partner with both ISU Credit Union and the mayor to get that out to our schools, that information. The reading sheets went out on February 29th, and they will be collected and tallied in early March. ISU donates cash prizes to the library of the schools. There are 3 different prizes, and last year the most minutes total went to Gate City, so their library was able to take advantage of that $500 cash prize. So I'll keep you updated on how that goes at the next board meeting. The mayor also announced the Promise of Pocatello Scholarship. He created this scholarship to empower students who generally value higher education but aren't necessarily the traditional student that we see getting scholarship awards, maybe students who have struggled with personal challenges. And so he was able to go out and get some sponsors to award 5 $2,000 scholarships this year. And that will be a 2-year scholarship, $500 per semester, and the students must go to Idaho State University. Again, within School District 25 boundaries, also not just our schools, but homeschools, private schools, and charter schools. They're planning an award ceremony for that on Saturday, April 18th at 9:30 in the morning, so I'll make sure I send a calendar invite out to that. We've also got our Education Foundation Scholarship. We're accepting applications for that as we speak, and that scholarship window closes on March 2nd. So we'll be awarding those after spring break. Any questions on that? And before I go to festival?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So the festival, Renee, I submitted an addendum, so you should have that report with you. So what we want to look at, the net deposits in that first column were $179,507.19. And then if you go to the information just under that, it will show you what our beginning balance was, $8,982, what our net deposits were, that $179,000 figure, and then less sales tax, which was $2,000.42, $42.03, and then our total expenses were $58,887.50, which makes our proceeds from the festival this year $127,560.57. We will be reserving $120,000 of those dollars to award through grants and other endeavors directly back into our classrooms. And last year, just to give you a comparison, we awarded $100,000 in grants, so we are $20,000 above this year. So I'm really, really pleased with that number. Thanks in part to additional sponsorships and also that additional gift from ISU Credit Union where they came in with $10,000 extra at the very tail end.
So,
Go ahead.
go ahead. Are the awards that you're making, do they have any special criteria or?
So we are still working on when we will be announcing that window based on some other conversations that we're having in the district right now. So I'll be able to give you a better update on that, I believe, in March. We're still meeting with our awards committee to determine exactly where those funds will go.
And I guess my question lends to that when we had our one-on-one device comments, because I know a lot of those teachers put in for like
Right.
Chromebooks and things like that.
Right.
So I'm thinking that'll have to be modified somewhat?
Yes,
or-
it will be modified, and we're discussing other ways and other needs that the Education Foundation can serve, so
Yeah.
that a partial of that money, and I haven't had a chance to get this approved from our grants and sponsorship, or
Right.
grants and awards committee yet, so I don't want to go into too much detail until I have the chance to do
Okay.
that, but we're addressing other needs within the district that
District,
money
okay.
will be allocated to, and then another portion of that will be opened for grants, and it will be about the same amount that
So
normally
that
isn't
is
reserved for
kind of what the
Chromebooks.
discussion's about. Good.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Courtney.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, we're now at the point for the presentation of the proposed budget adjustments for the 2019-20 school year in the public hearing. Mr. Reed will present the proposed budget, and I'll now recess this meeting to convene a public,
Oh,
No.
not yet.
okay. I'm going to press on.
Thank you, Vice Chair Vitale and members of the board, and Superintendent Howell. As is customary, every January or February, depending upon when we can have the information available to you as a board, we make various adjustments to all of our various funds that we have within the school district. The first sheet that you'll see in your packet, the one that is kind of a bright yellow in color on the heading there, shows the individual fund budget adjustments. Our original budget total was $129,339,377, and you can see on that sheet there under the adjustment column that we have made adjustments of $3,421,322 to various funds that are identified there. That $3.4 million of budget adjustments, of that total there were four major funds that made up 85% of that total. Those funds being the general fund, Title I, a grant fund, a new fund, which the verbiage would be familiar to you, which is Medicaid, but that is a new fund that we established, and I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment. And then our regular Head Start program. Those major adjustments within those funds made up 85% of that $3.4 million budget adjustments. On your next sheet that you have in your packet, you'll see the individual fund budget adjustments and some detail that outlines why those adjustments were made. Under the general fund, and this is on the revenue side, so I need to kind of keep in the frame of mind that these adjustments that we're talking about now affected the revenue side of these funds, not the expenditure side. So in the general fund, you'll see that our state-based support adjustment was just about $3,000, meaning that we, between a little bit of an overestimate on our units that we had coming in and other adjustments as they worked through our state funding formula, we were just about right on the mark there overall. You'll see, however, a $550,000 decrease to the general fund revenues. That is because that we took funds on the expenditure side and moved that over into the new Medicaid revenue or Medicaid fund account that we needed to establish for the state. So that's why that adjustment went out of the general fund there. And then you can see a small adjustment there to the adjusted beginning balance to actual. You'll see various other adjustments as you move down that sheet, and if you come about 2/3 of the way down under Fund 251, which is our Title I, you'll see a large adjustment of $1,356,000. That was due to carryover that carried over from last year into this year, and additional grant funds that became available for that special program there. On the next page, you will
Now,
s-
now my numbers say 1,377,000.
Yes, I was just talking about the very first line there,
Oh,
rather
okay.
than that other New Horizon grant that was underneath there. So I was talking about you're right, the overall total of that is 1,377,000, but I was talking about the adjustment to reflect grants, funding and carryover. That was the
Okay.
1.356 million.
Okay,
We're on the same page, we were just looking on a different line there.
okay.
Okay. On the next page, if you will, at the top of the page there, you'll see a Fund 260. That's the new Medicaid fund that we have. The State Department wanted the school district to separate out its Medicaid activities to separate from the general fund for tracking purposes. You know that there was a big issue at the state whether they would expand Medicaid and do all those different types of things, and throughout the state, there are issues with compliance and regulation in regard to Medicaid funds, and the state felt that it would be easier to separate that off and create a special fund to track it. Personally, I didn't agree with that philosophy of separating that out because we've never had an exception to our audits when that's been reviewed, but we did it as a matter of compliance. So we established that new fund there in an amount of $775,000, and that was in the general fund. We just moved it out of the general fund to this special Medicaid fund right here. A little confusing, but that's what they have asked us to do. And then about halfway down, you'll see the Head Start Program, Fund 274. And again, you'll see a $1,339,000 adjustment upwards. And that was for a special duration grant that we received through Head Start that was over and above, almost double than what was in the regular program. So that is fairly significant. I could go over all the other ones if you would care for me to do that, but I think that you probably understand them, and if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer those. The last sheet in your program under these budget adjustments is a breakdown on the expenditure side now of things, not the revenue side, but the expenditure side. And it shows differences between, for example, original salaries and adjusted salaries, and then the variance on the right-hand side there. So you can see that we had an adjustment between salaries and fringe benefits there of a fairly significant amount. Partially that is due to the fact that many of our replacement teachers, if you will, or staff, come in on the beginning part of the salary schedule rather than when they exit on the tail end of the salary schedule. And so adjustments are made for that, to that effect, to adjust those budgets back to what we anticipate we will actually spend. On the purchase services, you can see we had an adjustment downwards in the general fund of $553,000. That was moving that Medicaid expenditures out of the general fund over to Fund 260. Then under the transfer section, you'll see $225,000 increase to the general fund. That was to provide the 30% required match that we have to do for Medicaid that was being provided in the general fund previously, but now has to be transferred to the Medicaid fund in order to be in compliance with that. Shifting the money around to fulfill the different requirements that we have to meet Medicaid. Okay. And lastly, just under the appropriated fund balances, all of these adjustments, plus and minus, affect the appropriated fund balance, and so that was adjusted up by the figure that you see there, and that appropriated fund balance will be used to help offset next year's cost increases and things of that nature, such as medical insurances, salary increases, supplies, and those things of that nature. I would also remind you that our supplemental levy amount remains fixed at $9,250,000, and so that fund helps offset those types of increases going forward until we renew that levy again.
Okay.
So with that, Vice Chair Vitale, I would entertain any questions or allow you to go into special session for the hearings.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, I'll now recess the meeting to convene a public hearing on the proposed budget adjustments. I have no requests. So, yeah. I'll now close the public hearing and reconvene the regular meeting. The board will now consider adopting the 2019-20 proposed budget adjustments as presented. Is there a motion?
I move that we accept the budget adjustments as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
And no opposed, so the motion's passed. Thank you, Bart. We'll now move on to curriculum and instruction and school safety. Mr. Orr.
Good evening. My item is routine. You have included in your packet a memo detailing an alternate route to graduation request for a learner at New Horizon High School in English Language Arts and Math. The school administration has signed off on the appropriate paperwork, and it is on file in the curriculum department, and you'll be asked to approve this request later this evening.
That was short.
Lori Craney, the report on the following Head Start program update, 21st century after-school program, and the Idaho Food Bank
All right.
backpack program.
The Head Start report, the program's at full enrollment, still 183 students. 4-year-old class has had 3 4-year-olds who withdrew from the program for medical, attending another preschool, and some family issues. The 3-year-old class had 5 3-year-olds who withdrew from the program, moving out of the area, attending other preschool and transportation. On the wait list, there are 17 4-year-olds and 33 3-year-olds. Average daily attendance for January was 88.3%. There were 37 of students were at 20% or over on their absenteeism. 40 students had 10 to 20% absenteeism for the whole year. For personnel, there's 3 openings for a bus driver, but they conducted interviews and they have a potential prospect for that 4th bus driver. So the buses are up and running, they're just looking for that 4th one. Dispatcher, so that's also been posted. It's starts early in the morning, and they work part of the day there, right there in the office, and a full-day classroom aide. 4 parents from the Policy Council went to Boise last Monday, and they had a successful day at the Capitol. They met with Representatives Abernathy, Andrus, Armstrong, and Senators Nye and Guthrie. Representative Smith was ill, otherwise they would have met with all 6 of our elected officials. The next time these officials we will be able to visit with them is in April or May, when the legislators come to visit the program. The Head Start planning session for the 2021 school year will be the February 25th, the 27th, and the 28th. They'll be over here on the 25th, and they'll be meeting at one of the local hotels, a meeting room on the 27th and 28th. You are welcome to attend, and if you are interested, let me know or let Ms. Bray know, and we can give you more information, because you're always welcome to those. They're participating this week in a CACFP audit, which is the Child and Adult Care Food Program audit. So those auditors are there. They were there today and will be there for the next 2 days. And so we'll be waiting for hoping that all goes well with that audit. For the after-school program, the grant is included in your packet. Last month you did approve that, but it's in there for you to see. We should be hearing next month on whether or not we got the grant, so that's always seems like a long wait for that. They have an audit tomorrow by Boise State University, which is an outside agency. It's in the 3rd year of the grant is when they're audited. And so it's the Irving, Jefferson, Washington, and Lewis and Clark grant that will be audited. They're fully staffed, and they're close to hitting that attendance goal. And then you'll note in your packet, there is the food backpack program update with 955 backpacks distributed in the month of January.
I did have a question on the backpack one. There's no number for Green Acres
I-
for January,
Yeah, I'm thinking they didn't write it down. We rely on them to write it down, and so
so,
the secretary gave that, and I noticed that,
okay.
but I can follow up on it.
So,
Yeah.
so that number would actually be higher at the bottom.
Mm-hmm. And what happens, the way that we do this, the backpacks are in the back room here, and so they come over, they write down how many, and
Oh,
so we do rely on them
to write it
to
down.
write it down and to keep track. We don't check them in and out, we monitor it, but aren't there
Okay,
every step of the way. So sometimes there are some things like that.
okay, thanks.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
Okay. Sue Pettit. Out of state overnight? All your overnight?
All our overnight ones,
Nice.
yep.
Early
We've got a few
graduation.
coming up. A couple of college trips, FCCLA State, which has already been approved earlier, but we put it on there anyway. Robotics, they're taking an extra trip down to Salt Lake to participate in a practice run for their robot for state. It's another competition, and that way they can tweak anything that needs to happen on their robot.
I
And
I
then,
have a question about that.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that their travel is by teacher vehicles.
There's only 6 kids going.
Right, and I saw that, but, so I just wondered about insurance. Are they insured? How does that work?
So they have to bring in proof of insurance to us, and we have to check their driving record. And then parents have to sign off saying they know they're going to be traveling with, in
Okay.
a private vehicle.
Okay, that's all I was wondering.
Yep, because we asked the same thing. And then early graduation applications, there are 46
Man.
this time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Some of them are fascinating letters. We have at least one young man who's going to be an apprentice as an electrician. Lots that are going to work to save for college, and a couple of, at least one armed forces, and some that are attending college starting as soon as possible. So
And this accounts a lot for our decline in our high school enrollment, right?
for the end of the year. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And that's it for me.
Thank you.
that was a big number.
Yeah, it is. Tanya. Oh, there's a outdoor facilities planning, huh?
I really liked your presentation on this as I
Thank
went through
you.
it. It was nicely done, anyway.
Thank you. It's actually the second meeting that we have. I'm not going to go into detail, but I just want to give you kind of an overview of what we're doing. One of the big things coming on as the new athletic director is I just want to talk about and look at in the future, so we'll make recommendations to the board. So I put a facilities committee together, and if you notice on the second page, it kind of gives you an overview of who's on that committee. I picked a parent from each high school and the city of Chubbuck, Pocatello, and the event director for the wellness center and so forth, so we have a really good representation. And the only one that hasn't showed up yet is Pauline, which I know her personally, and she's a busy, busy woman, so I understand. So just to quickly, we started our first meeting with the purpose so we can sustain the committee together throughout the next 5 years and further on. So it's not just a one and done. And to do that, we have to come up with a purpose of our why. And so we talked a lot about our how, our what, and our why. And so we came up with this why, and we actually added to this, the front part of this, to add our role as a committee to promote and support equitable opportunities for athletics activities while recognizing the profound ability to build relationships, cultivate pride and purpose, and bring community together. And then we showed, those feel-good videos there, so if you guys get bored, you can watch those. And then we talked about, where we've been, where we're going. Bart had put on a committee a few years ago that was amazing and that, produced Iron Horse and Hawthorne Middle School and Century's Track. So this was updated. And then we went into great detail with, with the SIP plan that we looked at and so forth with the middle school tracks. The question then became, where are we going and where do we want to invest? And so we talked about the 3 middle school tracks, the cost. Right now we're looking at Irving and Alameda. And, I went and did some research and found out we're actually one of the only middle schools that has an asphalt track in all of Idaho Falls, Meridian, Blackfoot, Twin Falls. Everybody has grass, gravel, or cinder. And they run their meets on the high school tracks. So they practice on. So we really had some really deep discussions about, do we continue to upkeep the 3 middle schools tracks, because Hawthorne is now Pokey's track. And so we had really good discussions about that, and then talked about what we could use those funds for. And we talked about putting a turf field at each one of the high schools, Hawthorne Middle School being Pocatello High School's turf field, with the same amount of price. About a $700,000 cost to renovate the middle school tracks would be for one of those turf fields. And why would we want to do that? So we talked about how boys soccer would have a game field, and right now Highland High School gets kicked off of their game field on Saturdays because of Little League football. We actually got kicked off during districts and had to go find a field from there. And we've had obviously some voles and moles issues out at Century. So we were really talking about soccer fields and field house type opportunities. So the turf would be able to give us soccer fields for boys, girls, for game fields, JV and freshman football, marching band, baseball and softball, spring training, because we wouldn't have mud holes and so forth. They could go out there and track spring training. We could actually rent it out for lacrosse, Little League football, and so forth, because the wear and tear wouldn't be an issue.
So by turf fields, you mean no track in them at all, just all?
No, it's a track. I'll show you.
It is a track.
Yep,
Okay.
we'll get there. So what will this benefit on soccer in itself? We could do gate, we could do concessions, scoreboard. All of this is already going to be part of that field. We have scoreboards already and fences around among the schools, aesthetics, painting. So none of that would have to be done if we had turf fields. Marching band could go out and practice all they want on the 50-yard line and wear it out. That's the big issue with marching band. And football, same thing. We'd have the scoreboard, so we don't have to provide scoreboard for all of these sport events, so that we'd all be in that same facility. And spring practice as well. So I did a lot of research, went and looked at a bunch of different fields. Right now this is Rocky Mountain High School in Meridian. This is their second field that they just put on. They've already had a turf field for 10 years, if you notice the track around it. So it's just the infield. And if we look really close, and I took some pictures of sidelines here, this is the soccer markings. And this is the infield and the goal lines and so forth. So in Meridian, same thing. So Rocky Mountain Meridian and all of the Meridian, or the Meridian School District schools will have turf as of next year. Oahe is the new high school being built, and they're going to put turf down. Burley has it, and Madison has it as well. So we really talked about recommendation of, instead of investing into those middle school tracks, investing into turf, and this would be the opportunity to even go to providing, and I think I had the first picture up there, right here, that eventually in 10 years or so down the road, we could have seasonal domes. And see, this dome right here is, Twin Falls has those dome over the swimming pool that they put up in the wintertime. We could put it over the turf so that we could actually have a field house for softball, baseball, track, and all our spring sports for the season of winter. So that's for the future down the road if we get turf and go that direction. Questions?
Where would this field be?
So we'd have a turf field at Century High School, Iron Horse Stadium for Highland High School, and then Hawthorne Middle School for Pocatello High School.
So are you talking replacing the grass with turf?
Mm-hmm. And
The
at
grass
Alec,
we just put in at Iron Horse, replacing all of that with turf.
right now, the only thing that we can do on that grass, Jackie, is play football games. We can't practice on it. We can't play soccer because of wear and tear. So it literally is only utilized for JV and freshman football games. So we want to be able to utilize that facility in a game situation and put fans for soccer and so forth in the stands and use the scoreboard, the concession stand, the ticket, all of that for soccer, boys, girls, and football.
Okay, so you're thinking that if we put turf down, we could use it for all these things. What about scheduling? And, I mean, you know, we've got track and we've got all these things, so what about scheduling? Could you?
So soccer games are in the fall. So you have soccer in the, what's that?
So's football.
So is football. So you can have football games. So typically soccer games are Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday. Football for JV is Wednesday and Thursdays. And with the lights, we can actually do practices after that or before that. So right now we have to have soccer, varsity soccer go first because of a light issue, because of it gets too dark. So we could actually have JV soccer go first and then varsity soccer go second and have more of a fan base with the parents. So it's scheduled, and I've talked to, you know, Madison and the Meridian School, that how do we schedule it? They said it's used very well every night and into the night for all different activities.
Okay.
Because they could practice on those as well with football.
Okay, and my other question is injuries. I've always heard that turf.
They have
provides
gotten
more-
so much better. When they first came out, it was really hard. But now they've actually got different weights, so 30-pound, 40-pound, 50-pound, and different levels of grass as well. So the injuries are becoming less and less.
Okay.
I did a lot of research just because of those questions, because I don't want to build something that would cause more,
So-
but we're still in that stage of recommendation.
So it would save us money because we could use it for multiple purposes.
Mhm.
What about, and no water, obviously, we wouldn't have to water it.
No, right now Madison has water on their field, and we asked them why they did that, because Boise doesn't have them. And they said literally if somebody pukes and stuff, they clean it. When you could actually didn't have to have the whole system to do that. I asked them if they watered it because it was hot in the summer, and they said it actually made it worse because of the humidity. So yeah, no water
Okay.
would be
So
the
what about
recommendation.
What about upkeep of these turf fields?
Okay, the upkeep, what you have is what's called a rake. So right now, all of the high schools have a four-wheeler that rake their baseball fields and so forth, or a side-by-side. You just rake that once every week or two just to distribute the pellet things that they have around. And then once a year, you have it maintained. It's about $8,000 to have it just redistributed. And we talked about using sponsorships to help with those funds. So if we put a sponsor on the turf, let's say 100,000 for 10 years, that would be 10,000 each year used for that purpose to have
What
that
about
done each year.
Life expectancy on these turfs?
10 years. I know Burley got almost 13 out of theirs, so it kind of depends on the wear and tear, but typically 10 years.
So what do we usually get on grass?
Say that one more time.
What do we get on grass?
Grass, you can only do one sport because of the wear and tear.
Right.
Does that make sense? And
But,
so-
I mean, most of our fields, we don't have to replace. How
No.
long's it been?
No, we have to water and just maintain, fertilize, mow, that type of stuff.
What would be the comparison then, Tanya? You know, watering and as opposed to maintaining the turf?
And it's hard, I know Bart talked quite a bit about just watering, you know, if we went to grass tracks and so forth. And it's, from what I gather, the maintenance of it in the sense of we aerate it, especially out at Century, because of the moles and voles. And we talked about that as well, like, okay, turf, how's the moles and voles going to put up with that? Actually, people put turf down to get rid of the moles and voles because they come up and eat the seeding. So it actually helps with it.
Okay.
And right now, so I don't know the exact number on the watering, but it is really comparable.
Yeah, have you seen any real cost comparatives versus one versus the other? I mean,
The big cost comparative is
just
the initial putting the turf down is the most expensive part. To re-turf it in 10 years is about half, a little less than half, about 350. But I think when we look at the facilities and that big, why are we doing this, is bringing community together. The facilities itself, the state-of-the-art facilities itself, and allowing Little League to be able to rent it out because the wear and tear is not going to be an issue for us. And Meridian talked about that the adult soccer leagues, especially in the summertime and so forth, rent it out frequently.
Well,
And we get to do gate, concessions, and scoreboard, all for the games.
for whether they're us or not, or,
Mhm.
I mean, even when you rent them out.
And I had an adult football league contact me recently and want to go play on the Hawthorne in March and April, and I'm like, oh, the snow and everything. It would tear that field. But if I had turf, I'd have that rental.
So, do you know what the preparation is? What goes under the turf? How much?
I have all that paperwork because actually Meridian athletic director was awesome and gave me exactly all of, and it's pretty intense. That initial, they do, sand and all the different layers, and it's got to have that drainage system and the softness and all that kind of stuff. That's why it's $750 that very initial time, that first time.
And then the next time you just replace the turf.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was just curious because I know up at ISU at the mini dome that they've got asphalt underneath there.
Mm-hmm. And I know, like, I talked to Pauline about how much Mountain America has their big, sponsorship on and they pay $100,000 for 1 year just to have their name on their turf. And ours would be for 10 years because we wouldn't redo it until 10 years. But they actually have when you look at the markings, I don't have a good picture for the markings, I don't think, but you have soccer, football, and where's the fit? You have soccer. Do you see the soccer goal thing here? And lacrosse, and then the football markings.
Yeah, it's
So you
hard to
never
tell
have
that.
to paint it
Yeah,
again.
it's hard to distinguish between those, though. How do they do that at games?
If you look here, it's easier to see. Do you see how it's brighter? The picture was Google Earth. It wasn't the best picture for you. But again, that's another saving in cost. We don't have to paint the fields.
When Iron Horse was getting built, there was a lot of worry about drainage for that field. Will that hold, and I think probably at Hawthorne too, will that drainage serve if we go to the turf?
Mm-hmm. And that's part of that system, like the layering that they do.
Okay, so the drainage wouldn't have to be redone.
Mm.
All right.
It's interesting.
It's a lot to think about, I know, and
Right.
we're still in the process. We're meeting again in a couple weeks, but I just kind of wanted to give you guys a heads up of where we're at and any questions that I could answer.
A lot of great discussion. Really, the start of this, though, is a bit of a trade-off,
Mm-hmm.
preliminary. I mean, that we would go to the grass track
Mm-hmm.
and use that money in a different way that would cover
Mm-hmm.
multiple sports over a number of months.
Right.
Versus a track season that's 6 weeks. And then Tanya talked to you in depth about the wear and tear on the grass and the limited use perhaps that we have right now on a grass field.
So like,
So-
we'd go to Alameda over here and we would take out the asphalt.
Yeah.
And put grass back in there.
Yeah, and if we put grass in there, we could actually use it as a soccer field for practice because it'd be wide enough now. Right now, it's not wide enough.
Okay.
Well, I do know the problems we have with soccer fields and things.
Mm-hmm. So that's, if you look at that 3 middle school track slide, that's what started this initial conversation was, and this is wrong. This should be 700,000 right now that we had thought about going in and redoing Irving's track because it's that bad, the foundation.
Mhm.
And we just started thinking like a middle school track, which we love middle school track, but it's a 6-week program. They have 2 meets maximum there. We could have those 2 meets at a high school, which they're doing this year. So if Irving is hosting a track meet, we're going to go out to Century and host it at Century. And then Century's athletes are going to help us set it up, and we've already organized that. If Alameda's hosting a track meet, they're going to go up to Highland, and if Hawthorne's hosting a track meet, they're going to use Pokies, which is Hawthorne's track. And Franklin is at Franklin for right now. So we're already doing those things. And so I think, you know, anytime we take something away, we have to put a lot of thought into it. But we look at the money and what we're putting into it and what could go to and what benefits it could go to. And that's where this conversation began.
So the conversation about cinder or whatever else becomes moot then?
We talked about dirt and cinder, and I know in the Boise area they didn't like cinder as well, just because it got in their shoes,
Yeah.
and it was really hard to maintain, that they preferred the grass.
So if we practiced on these tracks that are grass all the time, and I'm guessing the kids will still be running with their cleats in that, is that gonna be, how's that gonna tear up? How's the wear and tear on that gonna be?
You know, our track season's 6 weeks, and it's wear and tear for those 6 weeks. You're absolutely right. But the meets, so out of those 6 weeks, 2 of those days, they're going to be off. So then it's only 3 days for 4 weeks. So it's even smaller and smaller amount of time. Does that make sense?
Well, I guess I like the makeup of your committee that you've included community leaders and parents.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that's what we need to do more often, is have a whole big group that's all vested
Mm-hmm.
in this, you know, like same with these kinds of projects that were
Mm-hmm.
presented, you know, so that, because I think,
We got to get buy-in.
yeah.
Anytime you take something away or do something big, you have to have a why and a good buy-in from everybody.
And I think that's what we need, and also helping, maybe helping us find ways to fund
Mm-hmm.
things like this.
Absolutely.
You know, people who might be willing, or companies or something that might be willing, like you said, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to put their name on or invest or
Mhm.
something. And so I think the more input we can have from the community,
Mm-hmm.
the better that is for us to maybe find help in some of these things, because it's so
Right.
costly, especially to
Right.
the beginning investment is so costly.
Right.
You know, I mean, I think sometimes people think we're a bottomless pit.
I've learned that really quick. Yes, I agree. And, you know, and we're trying to put, like, you know, the money, where are we going to get the best investment return? And and then we looked at the middle school tracks compared to the turf, and that's what
Right.
started it. But I agree with you. I think, you know, we could do some really amazing things with sponsorships on the scoreboards or in the stands, even with all the different programs being able to use that and utilize that.
Yeah, so I think that's a big part of this is your committee members and getting help from the community and
Yep.
helping figure.
Because it'll look different. The tracks at the middle schools will look different, and that'll be big, you know, and if it is a turf field, then we will have to lock it up, and so that's going to be different, but it's going to be utilized a lot more. Like, they're going to be seeing it being used almost nightly. Madison says they use theirs every night, even right now, where the snow melts quicker on it, so they can go out and practice baseball and softball.
Do they have any trouble with the community, you know?
With Madison?
Well,
No.
you know, people.
Oh,
saying-
vandalism?
wanting- No, just wanting to use it, you know, because like Highland, up at the
Right.
Iron Horse, their, you know, community is using that track. And
Mm-hmm. And right now, no. I mean, it literally is that, you know, this is important to us and why we do it. It's not to, you know, keep people out.
Right.
And then the opportunities that are close, like I know Highland Track, I know that was a pass to, we got the wellness center right there that has that facilities and asphalt, you know. So we definitely would have to that's, you know, we've had Courtney Fishers on our committee. We need to have that relationship of this is the information, this is why, that why.
Okay. All right. Good. Anything else? Thanks.
So I'm hoping to bring a recommendation probably in April, because we meet again this month and finalize things in March. So March, April, I'm hoping to bring the recommendation of this 5-year phase, what it might look like.
And kind of where the money's coming from.
Yeah, we only know a portion of it.
Pass a school plant facilities levy.
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
told him go vote.
Right. Tanya, you also have athletic schedules and travel?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Athletic schedules is on, you should see, I think Century High School's first. You got your baseball and golf, tennis, softball. This is hoping the snow doesn't come back. And it starts February 21st, which is crazy. That's not even 2 weeks away, and track. And then I think you have Highland High Schools and then Pocatello High Schools. Does anybody have any questions about any of those schedules? I know right now with Pocatello High School, I had all 3 high school ADs meet. Hallowell used to be Pocatello High School's field, and that's where they practice. Now with the new facilities at Hawthorne, we rotated practices at Hallowell, similar to what we do at the Mini Dome. So each high school has an opportunity to practice on Hallowell as well as have games. They don't anticipate ever practicing because they'll be making up games all the time, but we did put a calendar together so that everybody had equal opportunity.
I just noticed that, I think it's Pokey that has so many away things.
Mm-hmm. And initially, they start off that way just because of our weather. But we're in that Great Basin Conference, so one year we go and one year we come. So last year could have been a little bit more opposite of that.
Here.
All right. Good. Thanks, Tanya.
Is there anything else on my agenda that I don't remember?
Nope.
No, that's
Okay.
it.
Thank you.
Okay, Bart with business operations.
Thank you again. If I might just address the question that came up earlier. I
Do.
apologize that I really wasn't in the room, and then I saw you looking at me, and I didn't really hear too much of what you said. So would you mind restating your question, just so I make sure I understand what you were asking?
Okay, as I looked at all of those items to be paid out, Valley Office System has 2 different large conference tables, and I think they're for Gateway, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, so this is what I found, just by way of information to you, is the purchase order was actually for $5,080, but what wasn't really inherent in the board bills that you really look at is the description of everything that was ordered. You know that, and this will be part of the agenda this evening, is that we're looking at the sale of Bonneville. And so in preparation and expectation of that, we moved our professional learning center from the annex at Bonneville
Right.
to Gateway. And in conjunction of having to do some repainting and some patching and some minor remodeling to get that facility up where it could be utilized this year, and then some more work that needs to happen this coming summer. Out of our state professional development funds, Mr. Orr purchased 5 of the tables similar to what you see in our large conference room, the one that have the wheels that roll around and everything that can be configured a little bit differently. So there was a purchase of 5 tables and 10 chairs that went in the various rooms to provide. Pardon me?
10 sets of chairs, 2 in each bag for each set. There's 20 chairs.
20 chairs? Okay, I only thought there were,
The description says 2 in each.
2 in each, okay. So that's what there were. There were 5 tables and then 20 chairs in that line item that you were looking at there.
Okay, because there just were 2, and I thought, was that a mistake, Right, yeah.
Well, and again, sometimes how it comes across summarized in those board bills, when they come across, it doesn't list all the details, but I actually have a copy of this for you if you would like to see that, so.
No, I was curious, and then
Right.
I was trying to think, I mean, I don't know what they've done to remodel Gateway, but where were they gonna put huge conference tables in there?
Yeah, they're actually not huge tables. They're small tables similar to what you see over there in our large conference room when we meet from time to time. So they can put them together on one large table if they have a group that's all going to meet together, and they can put them together, or if they need to separate and pull them apart differently and configure that in a room in a different sense, they can do that as well.
Okay, that helps. I
I-
couldn't quite figure out what was
Okay.
happening there.
All right.
I had a question too, I didn't ask it, but I'm and I think you can probably answer this. I noticed in the bills adjustments that there was a payment to Hummel.
Yes.
Is that, can you tell me what that covers, that initial payment? I mean, I don't know if it was an initial payment, but
I doubt it was an initial payment.
Yeah.
They have been making periodic progress payments to us over the course of the last year, if you will,
okay,
for their work.
Yeah.
They have billed for the majority of Phase 1, which now is completed. There's a few little things that still need to be left done, but they have billed for Phase 1 of that project. And then they have been billing for and have billed for their design. And where we're at right now is the construction documents that we just had the plan review with the city of Pocatello. So they have billed with the percentage of completion of that work, which is nearly 100%. And now we will be entering into the bidding phase and then the actual construction and the management of that portion of that throughout the coming year. So
Okay.
that's just a progress payment. That's
okay.
and there have been several of those. That's not the only one. There
Yeah,
have been
that was
a
just
number
the
of
one
those.
that jumped out at me, I guess, but,
Sure.
and so now they're getting to the bidding phase. Will that be this month?
The actual bid comes out on February 18th is when the bids will be opened. We've actually advertised the 2 different times that we're required to do. We had a pre-bid walkthrough over at Pocatello High School. We actually had, if I remember correctly, 10 contractors which showed up and probably about 15 subcontractors. We had 25, 30 people there overall. And so we had very, very high interest in that particular project, and those bids will open on the 18th, which is next
Friday or Tuesday?
Tuesday, I believe it is.
Yeah.
But because of the way that the board schedule and everything is different, we will have to review those. And then I would imagine that we'll have a special session for the board to review the recommendation from the administration for that.
Okay, thank you.
So have our fingers crossed. We're excited that we're at this point in time. A lot of work and energy has gone into it to make this happen. And hopefully we'll have some good results back when we open the bids.
Yeah, it's hopeful that there were that many
Yeah,
Yeah,
bidders.
a lot of interest.
Yeah, it was.
Interest.
We had interest from Boise Valley to up north to from Utah. So hopefully we'll get some good competitive pricing on that. All right.
okay.
Moving forward, Idaho General Fund Revenue Report, you've seen that. They were up about $2.1 million, the state was, in regard to their revised budget. Just about 1/3 of 1% above their estimate, but what's really important is that they're up about 7% from last year's budget. So that's good news that things keep to be moving forward, and we appear to be on budget at the state level there. Next item is our free and reduced lunch percentages, and I just looked at that percentage overall, and we are at 43.02% for our free and reduced. That's the lowest I can recall that has ever been, at least since I've been in the district. So continues to slowly stay about where it's at, but just maybe edge its way down just a little bit over the last few months. The next item is an important item for the board for your consideration. As you know, we have been working for a number of years to sell and to dispose of the former Bonneville Elementary School. We no longer have use of that building other than for storage. And Neighbor Works gave us a letter of intent that they were interested in looking at that, and the board approved them looking at that building and selling that building for $250,000. They had a period where they could do their due diligence, where they had to go in and engage architects, other professionals, look at some bidding and things of that nature to make sure that this was worthwhile for them as a public agency as well. And so they have done that, and as recently as last week, before the 60 days expired, Mark
They were at
Dahlquist.
59 days, weren't they?
Yeah, they were pretty close. They were pretty close. If you remember our prior experience with this, we went right up to the same time period, actually. But this turned out to be a more favorable outcome. You can see in there their letter indicating their intent to purchase Bonneville Elementary School, and their resolution from from their board indicating that that was approved by their executive board. And so in your packet this evening is our resolution, School District 25 resolution, that will need to be approved by the board, indicating that we would sell Bonneville School for $250,000, as was indicated in our prior proposal. We did have an appraisal done that was required by law. There were no successful bids for that appraisal of $518,000. And so the next part of that statute indicates that the board can determine what is in the best interest of the district and our community in order to move forward. And that best interest has been to sell this property to Neighbor Works. So with that, I would certainly entertain any questions if you would have. Upon approval from the board, if that is your action this evening, then we will, I will notify Mr. Dahlquist about the board's decision. We will provide them a copy of this resolution, and then we will go to closing within probably the next 3 weeks and complete the sale of this property.
I do have a question on the cost, because it says in the letter of intent, $250,000 less one half the cost of asbestos removal. So for a net purchase of $245,300.
Okay, so there was an addendum that was placed in your packet there.
The Neighbor Works.
So what initially happened, if you will recall, is that we proposed to sell that for $250,000. They proposed to sell it for that. Let me clarify that. They proposed to sell it for $250,000. Then the issue came up about the abatement of the asbestos, and there's just a small amount, roughly $10,000, speaking in that facility. Neighbor Works proposed that we split that cost. That's where that initial part of it came in. Then we had other interest by other parties for that facility, but the board determined that they felt it was the best interest for the public and for our community and the district to sell it to Neighbor Works. I think it was you, Mrs. Craner, that indicated that because some of those bids were slightly more, nickels and dimes almost, so to speak, that we felt that we should stay at that $250,000 asking price. And so their resolution just steps out that process. The selling price is $250,000 less the cost that we will have to pay when we split for closing and those sorts of things.
Okay, so we're not doing the half payment for the abatement?
No.
We're not doing that half?
That's correct. But we will split.
But we will split the closing costs kind of thing and stuff?
That's correct. So we will net a little less than the $250,000, not much, but.
Okay, so this part in here then that says whereas.
Are you referring to their resolution, or are you referring to our resolution?
Let me see what I'm in. Let me see what I'm in. I think I'm in the Neighbor Works one. Yeah, I'm in the Neighbor Works one.
Yeah. Not
So
to
in
worry
ours-
about,
ours
not to worry
doesn't-
about their resolution. What's important is our resolution.
It's ours, okay.
Mhm.
All right, thanks for clarifying that.
think it says in there that whereas the district did not agree to.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to read that carefully to make sure you understand it.
Well, I was reading through it a couple of times, trying to figure it out, and I did read the part about the
Yes.
closing cost things and that, but I was,
So in summary, we would sell the property for $250,000 less the sharing of the closing costs.
okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And there's some minor fees for title insurance and things of that nature. But
So ours doesn't have to match theirs?
no.
No.
And theirs is actually accurate. It's just that it's a little, they step through the whole process as opposed to what we're doing.
Okay.
Okay? All right. I think that concludes the items that I have.
I think it does.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for checking on my question too, Bart.
You're welcome.
Mr. Smart, Employee Services.
All right. I have a number of items, but we will be quick and get through these in a hurry tonight, all right?
Sounds right to me.
Yeah. Infinite Campus. you know, our guys are always busy. Their big project right now is our phone system, getting it transitioned over. And so, they were working on Highland, I know, on Saturday, and they said that went slick as a whistle. So they will be hopefully getting the last 4 schools and us transitioned over here the next, I'm assuming, next couple weeks. So we don't have to do some of the funny things that we have to do to get from one school to another through our phone system. But our next IC upload's not till March, and so we're having a mini vacation, I guess. In your packet is student enrollment information. As I was going through it earlier tonight, I noticed that there are 2 forms in there with high school data in them and no middle school. So if you're interested in the middle school portion, we can certainly get that for you. Just have Tara print it out for you, and we might have to update our documents with that, because I know middle school is missing. Item C, the wellness dashboard. Because we're a week early for our board meeting this month, we don't have all the data that we needed to create that dashboard for you. But I can share with you a report that Shauna printed off. I don't remember if she gave this to me yesterday or this morning. Our medical experience for the month of January is 66.687%. And just remember that number, because it'll tie into something I'm going to discuss. I think it's on my next. It'll come up here shortly. Okay, so 66, just shy of 67%. So that's good news for us. That's very good news. And next month we'll have a more detailed wellness dashboard for you. Item D, our health fair. We completed our second session this last Saturday, and went well. And you were able to come up and join us on the first Saturday, and hopefully they treated you well. And I didn't hear you scream, so we do have occasionally somebody who passes out, and we had some of those, of course, and we always try to watch them from year to year to make sure that they're okay. Try to keep tabs on who they are. And we had, for our first session, about 400, well, actually had more than 400 people sign up. And on our second session, just shy of 370. So we were busy on both days. And so it went very well. The hospital is always great to work with. And they had the numbers needed to make it a smooth line this last couple of times. Doug, you're shaking your head like, yeah.
Yeah, they were moving much better than
they were
maybe
really doing
previous
well.
years.
And we had a lot of vendors, so that we had the support of them as well. So that was nice. It was really actually pretty nice. We had, we also work with, I got to get my numbers out here. We also work with Port Neuf Medical Center to offer mammograms to our employees. And they gave us about I'm going to assume about 140 appointments on a particular Wednesday. And I sent the invitations out to go out and get an appointment. Those 140 were gone less than 18 hours later. So it's important to our employees that they do this and get their wellness checks done. So over the last couple of weeks, they've added some additional times. So we're up to 173 or so, and every one of them is full. Every one of them. So it's a service our employees enjoy taking advantage of because it's convenient. You don't have to go up to the hospital and wait up there, but they can just come here. We even added 3 sessions up to the Idaho Imaging Center. So Idaho Medical Imaging, I guess is a better way of saying it. So I know they started up there today. Budget timeline is in your packet tonight as well. And we will start in earnest over the next couple weeks, and hopefully by the second week in April, we'll have some data to be able to share with you through our work sessions and our budget our board meetings. One of the first things that always concerns us is what is our medical increase going to be? Because that can sometimes be a budget buster. And we met on January 29th with Lockton and Pacific Source. We didn't have this meeting last year because of the bidding process we were going through, but we have met with our carrier at Lockton over the last several years and kind of had a pre-renewal meeting. And based upon what both Lockton and Pacific Source have indicated to us, and I had to sneak in here and give our board chair a little note here a couple of weeks ago when you were meeting, because he'd met with us all morning but missed the meat of the meeting. And I'm anticipating we will have less than 5% increase this year. So that's the good news. And when we look at our number that we just saw on our Pacific Source report, there's a pretty good chance of that. So, but anyway, over the next several weeks, we will be having some conversations with you on budget. And the big one is going to be, of course, insurance and where the state funding goes this year. And the last thing on my section of the agenda is item F, emergency school closure. We were out of school a week ago because of the nasty roads. And we do this exercise every time we close school. And the state wants to know when we're out of school and make sure we still get our minutes in that's required by law. And luckily, we have enough flexible time built in our schedules. It's not going to impact us. And but they do take note of this, and especially with our ADA. So they don't count it against us when you don't show up for school on that particular day. So you will be asked to approve this resolution tonight, and we will send the data to Boise, and hopefully everybody will be happy. So, unless you have questions for me tonight, that concludes my report.
Good, thank you.
Thank
Superintendent's report.
Okay, a couple items for you tonight, Mr. Chairman. First up is the board calendar, and you can see their school plant levy presentation schedule. It's well underway. We still have just probably under 2/3 of our presentations left to do. And as Courtney mentioned earlier in her presentation, we're hopeful that we'll have that video. She's ran into a couple snags along the way, but I'm grateful for her dedication to get that ready, because I think a visual is always helpful versus just the printed word and, verbal. It goes a long way. Pictures worth 1,000 words kind of thing. So
I was going to say, I went to retired teachers because she was supposed to do her presentation there, and they didn't let her for some reason. I don't know. Anyway, it didn't happen.
okay.
But I can take, if she will give me some handouts, I can take them in March, I think, which is before the election, right before the election.
Okay.
That I will take those and distribute those.
Okay.
So I don't know what happened.
All right. I'll visit with her and see if there's a possibility we could just have 5 minutes or so, and if not, we'll just send those informational.
All I know
flyers
is he
with
said he had several requests from people to come and present things, so he just kind of like denied them all.
Okay. All right.
I don't know, but
Okay.
it was,
And Tanya took it this morning to Judge Murray's meeting.
Yes.
And the big question there was, how's this going to impact my taxes? So,
Right, and every presentation we make, we come back and give Courtney some feedback. And that was the frequently asked questions, the FAQ she was talking about
Mhm.
developing, because that question comes up, are there any major projects that you can tell us about in the future? And so some of those things, we're trying to answer those through our website and the Facebook with the link to the website. And additionally, we'll be able to showcase all of the things that we've been doing for the past 10+ years. Mhm.
Will these videos of the process be going out, or is it just going to be on the school website?
No, it will go with us in the presentations
okay.
as well.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
I was wondering.
Yep. Yeah, as long as we can get time to
Yeah.
show them.
Yeah, I don't know what happened, but
Yeah, so that's moving right along, and we're, like I said, once we have that video in our hands, we'll be even in a better place. Yeah. So looking at your regular calendar, of course, we have today and then next week, tomorrow. We have student discipline hearings, 3 hearings, 1 report. We'll start at 4 o'clock, about a half hour earlier than usual, and hope to have you out of here within just a couple hours.
And you can get me by phone.
Okay?
You can get me by phone if you need that, especially since
We
Dave is
may-
sick.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay, thank you. February 14th, Simplot Games Breakfast, Fosbury and Friends up at ISU Student Union Ballroom. Courtney still has some seats available, so I don't know if any of you would like to attend, but if not, we'll fill them with some administrators or whatever. Okay. All right, local issues at Perkins. Safety Committee Conference Room, Mr. Manson, it looks like responded for a 9 a.m. meeting. Then next week on Monday and Tuesday, Day on the Hill, even though it's President's Day on Monday, the
So
the legislature is still in session, so a few of us will be there. I think Mr. Facer's confirmed, Mr. Manson, myself, and the others. You all have some other things that you won't be able to make it, so we appreciate you coming every year previous to this one, though.
Just the 3 of us going?
Yeah, so I'll get with you, Mr. Facer, Mr. Manson, I'll give him a call, and we'll work out a travel plan. Okay. Now, it shows that we'll have dinner with legislators at the Brickyard. Ms. Johnson and I have been in contact with Representative Smith, and maybe we could just have her host in a room there at the Capitol and have dinner brought in. And then that way we won't have to incur maybe an additional charge for a meeting room. And so that was also a concern about just the cost for the dinner at the Brickyard. So we were trying to be mindful of our legislators and their per diem rates that they receive. So that's a possible change. Then you'll see on the 26th of February, key communicators again, student discipline hearings, potentially already one or couple, 2. February 27th, District Curriculum Committee, that looks like Mr. Manson, Mr. Vitale at 8:30. Outdoor athletic facilities, Ms. Wilkes mentioned earlier that she had another meeting coming up. School board visits, the first part of March, and you can see your various assignments for that day. And then that takes us out to a work session on March 10th, which is also an election day.
Election day, yeah.
But it's also Judge Murray's meeting. I think they
Yeah,
announced
it
that
is.
today is the 10th, so.
So certainly you don't have to wait that long to vote. You can do
We can
it
do it this
earlier.
week, isn't it?
I was thinking it was next week.
Next week.
Yeah, yeah.
I think-
But
I think
I
it's
was
18th.
wondering, it's the 16th, I think, that it starts, but how are they gonna, isn't that primary?
Uh-huh.
So we don't know who's on the primary ticket.
Interesting, yeah.
Oh, I thought we did. I thought that all these people were on. didn't
Well,
they?
maybe they are.
I think, yeah, there's like tons of people on.
I'll have to get on and look at a sample
Yeah.
ballot myself.
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay,
If
that
they-
takes us out
yeah.
quite a
15
way.
presidential-
So I'll just leave it at that. And then I also have one other item for you that is legislative update. Mrs. Fisher spoke to a few of these earlier, so, but you all have seen the news about the content and teacher standards.
Yeah.
all the millions of things they're doing down there.
It's interesting. Yeah.
Undermined.
Well, I don't understand why they're taking away the content standards when the state board approved them. I just,
Yeah.
Well, and we've only had,
why do
like-
we have a state board? if
we've
they're
only
gonna-
had them like 5 or 7 years, haven't we?
Yeah, so
We
it
just-
was that whole package of everything as far as the rules that were
Yeah.
just, and then there was a temporary put in place up until the time the legislature met this year. And then the House, of course, said to repeal those. The Senate, just today, has offered a proposal to set up an interim committee, which would meet over the course of the year and then come back and revisit them again next year. So that's,
But- In the meantime, I guess my question is, if we think that they're doing a good job for us, can we override what they do?
I don't think so. You?
I don't
We-
either, but
Well,
we'll,
when it came to science standards, and we talked about that, we did. We said we want to stick with the science standards irregardless.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But so much planning has gone into preparing the content standards for teachers and, you know, all of that. To just throw that all away doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Well, it
Agree.
takes teachers time.
Yeah.
You know, they develop these units and they develop all this and they finally get it together until they know their content and then they want to switch it again, you know? I mean, it makes no sense.
Right. And we
It
have
just-
been very vocal in communications with our legislative delegation to say.
And
this
I
is
have
not-
appreciated your letters and Courtney's letters.
Yeah,
to them.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You know.
And they sound like they're gonna honor those letters too.
Yeah,
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 which is good.
I hope so.
Yeah.
So we'll continue to follow that, and if for this year, all we can get is a reprieve, and hopefully that interim committee can do whatever it is they're going to do and say.
They
and
don't
take
listen
the
to their
input.
committees anyway.
Yeah.
Still haven't done
I-
their.
Well,
If
and-
the alternative is to just get rid of them, we'll take the interim committee.
Right,
to-
right.
To get us by.
It's
a
better
year.
than the alternate.
Yeah, and then hopefully people will come out in numbers that are in favor. And
Well, and the hearings, as you pointed out, and maybe it was a prior letter, we're pretty much in favor of
very
sticking-
favorable. Yeah,
So why listen to the people who,
yeah.
that they,
Right along with that is House Bill 347 and 393 in regard to the elections, and just
that's-
holding an election once a year, and then the other
That's gonna be
is,
killer.
yeah,
In
2
May
dates.
well, and they took away March, which is when we need to do levies in
For
order.
budget setting purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we will keep a close eye on those and continue to petition our legislative delegation to, you know, hear our concerns. And in addition to Courtney or to mine, or you're welcome to.
We all need to do
Yeah.
that. I mean, really.
Yeah, individually,
need to.
yes, for sure. Another interesting bill, House Bill 364, school year start date, pushed back until after Labor Day.
Yeah, I saw that one too.
So,
So some kids can go to the fair.
yeah, and fair and tourism, I think were the two that were listed, so.
You know,
Well, maybe
Special
we can
interest.
just give them the title of school board members and not pay them and let them do our job,
Boy.
because that seems to be what.
Yeah, and we know, like, developing a calendar, how much time that takes.
Oh,
And how each district is different.
We are, very much so. 4-day school weeks,
Yeah.
flood harvests, and spring breaks, and everything is dependent upon a community to make those decisions. They shouldn't be dictated to
well,
some.
and what happened to local control?
Yeah, right.
I had somebody talk to me, a couple people talking to me about, they said, you know, they would rather go farther into the fall to start and farther into the summer, because first part of June is always nasty weather, and the first part of August, or the first part of September is always really nicer weather.
Yeah.
Well, and I think things like that in our local community, we could discuss and decide.
Yeah.
You know, but for them to do a one
Oh,
thing fits all is just so inappropriate,
Yeah.
and it's not their job, truthfully, you know, so. Yes,
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 thank you.
Yes.
I don't know.
House Bill 388, advanced enrollment for military students, that for charter schools perhaps, and lotteries and that sort of thing. If there was an opportunity, then that should be looked at, I think. Driver's ed, Senate Bill 1278, which would increase the reimbursement to districts from 125 to 150. There's money in that account to be able to do that. So we're hopeful they'll pass that, and it looks promising. Senate Bill 1279, superintendent evaluation. In addition to other things, the evaluation would have to include ISAT 3rd grade English Language Arts, ISAT 8th grade math, and graduation rates. So those are the three that they're proposing to dictate to you how a superintendent should be evaluated. Yeah. And then with that, really, and the pros and cons to Senate Bill 1285 about school board training. And so we already take advantage of that. Some districts perhaps not. So someone said this would be a good idea. And I think Karen or Quinn put out a nice summary of kind of the both sides of that. And they may be neutral on that one. I don't,
I think they are.
yeah.
But they offer the training,
Uh-huh.
and it keeps some districts from getting in trouble and not knowing what.
Open meeting laws and
meeting
stuff like
laws,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, everyone needs a refresher on that yearly, I think. We all do.
Did we ever get a response from ISBA on the letter we sent them?
Yeah, she just said that she would, that that's a long way out, she would keep it on her agenda.
Okay.
It isn't part of legislation. It will happen at.
Right,
the
right.
meeting.
I knew it wasn't that,
She
but,
said that she received it and that she has it flagged for her topics, but it's a long way out, so she didn't.
okay, I just didn't know.
They are,
Thought process.
when legislative session is on, Karen
Right.
and Quinn are flat out working, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other one I just wanted to mention is a Senate concurrent resolution, and it is looking at high school alternatives to the ISAT. And so only one test is required for the ESSA. And right now, we have a 10th grade ISAT test. And there's talk that we could do away with that and just focus on like a SAT, which is paid for by the state. And then I was on a call with Superintendent Barr last week, and I just asked if this was a time we could also revisit the ACT as a possibility, because SAT, we were just told that was going to be the test. So Mrs. Pettit is talking to high school principals and counselors, and will get us a recommendation that I can pass on to her.
Because ACT is the ones accepted around here most.
Still,
I mean, yeah.
Well, and
not
it
the
is in
SAT.
some eastern colleges too, so.
No, they take the SAT more.
Or even if there was an option for either or. And so I just asked if we could mention that, if it could be part of this discussion.
Which would make sense if a student knows where they want to go to college, which
Mhm.
one takes what,
Yeah.
you know?
So that is actually, the Senate is working on it, but the call from Superintendent Ibarra was more state board. And so I don't know if they're both working on this simultaneously, or if one has an idea and the other one has an idea. I'm not sure, but
What percentage of our students actually take, well, now it would be SAT, but they don't all do that, do they? Or are they required to?
They all do.
yeah. So it's hopefully 98 to 100%.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Uh-huh.
We used to
Yeah.
have that report that showed ACT versus SAT, but that's
Mhm.
been long ago that they changed it to just SAT and then
Okay.
Yeah.
have that data.
Okay, that's.
All right,
what I'd
good.
say.
No other public comment. So we'll now move on to action items. And the first item is to approve the alternate route to graduation request.
I make a motion that we approve the alternate route to our graduation request.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next item is to approve the out-of-state overnight travel request.
I move we approve the out-of-state overnight travel requests.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next item is the approval of the early graduation request.
I move that we approve all of those
All 40 of them? Yeah.
early graduation requests.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. No opposed. The next item is to approve the spring athletic schedule,
I move,
inclusive of travel.
I move we approve the spring athletic schedules inclusive of travel.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next item is to adopt the resolution regarding the conveyance of real property, Bonneville Elementary School to Neighborhood Works Pocatello. Is there a motion?
I hereby move that the board adopt the resolution regarding the conveyance of real property, Bonneville Elementary School, to NeighborWorks Pocatello, as if read into the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, the final item is to adopt the emergency school closure resolution.
I move that we adopt the emergency school closure resolution as if read into the minute.
I second.
No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, this concludes the meeting. We're finished.
I move that we adjourn.
I have.
I'll second.
Good.